Sure. Hi everyone, I'm Priya and I work on the Helpline for Carers UK, advising carers and people that need help and support on community care related matters. And I've been working with Carers UK for just over a year now. Liz?
Hey everyone, my name's Liz. I too work on the advice line. I work within welfare benefits and general care issues. I've been with Carers UK since September 2017, can you believe? And so it's really lovely to be with you all today. And I'm going to hand back to Priya because it's her presentation first this afternoon.
Thanks, Liz. Yeah, I'm just going to share my screen just there. So yeah, I'll be talking about respite care today and how to pay for it, or getting funding for it, and just general carers assessments as well. So the first step when you want to ask for a carer's support is that you ask for a carer's assessment, and this is basically an opportunity to let social services know what your caring role involves and also what support you might need. An adult carer is entitled to a carer's assessment under Section 10 of the Care Act. And so this applies to carers in England. The Care Act is the legislation that applies to adults that need care. A young carer is someone who is aged under the age of 18, and they're also entitled to a carer's assessment under the Children Act. So the Children Act is the legislation that applies to people under the age of 18. So that's people that are young carers and also children that might also need care and support services. Again, this applies to people living in England. A parent carer is somebody who is aged 18 or over and provides care for a disabled child for whom the parent has parental responsibility, and they're also entitled to a carer's assessment under, again, the Children Act, and that applies to carers in England only. And for carers who live in Wales, they are entitled to an assessment as well, but it's under different legislation, and that's the Social Services and Wellbeing Wales Act 2014. So sometimes carers might have problems in accessing assessments, and there's lots of delays, or local authorities just don't respond. So if you ever are in that situation, you can always use one of the remedies available to you, which is to make a formal complaint and to say, well, according to whichever legislation applies to you, you can always reference this and say that it's your legal entitlement to have this assessment. So this is always the first step, is to ask for this assessment to get support services in place to identify what it is you actually need as a carer. So the assessment basically explores what your caring role is, your own health and well-being needs and your other responsibilities, and also what outcomes you want to achieve and whether it's actually appropriate for you to continue providing care. In some cases it may not be, and that's what the assessment is for a social worker or an assessor to look into what you do and to see whether it is appropriate for you to continue providing care, or what do they need to do to help you to continue to provide care. So the outcomes are explored in the care and support regulations, and there's a few of them, so I'll talk through each one. So the first one is carrying out any caring responsibilities that you might have for a child. So this is where you're looking after somebody, but you're also having to look after somebody else who's a child, so they have to take that into account. You might be providing care to other people, such as a grandparent or a mother, father. It could be anybody, a friend, anyone at all. Maintaining a habitable home environment. So this is where are you able to look after your home and clean it and have time to do all those things? Managing and maintaining nutrition. This can cover things like, do you have time to go to the supermarket, and do you have time to cook? and those sort of things. So it takes, the local authority has to look into those different factors. And developing and maintaining family or other personal relationships. So this, it looks into whether, do you have time to sort of make new friendships, or do you have time to maintain the one that you currently have? Sometimes hear from carers that they're struggling with their relationships, or their marriage is at breaking point because of the caring role. So local authorities have to take that into account as well. And it's important to be as honest as you can so that you can get the right help. Engaging in work, training, educational volunteering. So this is where you're in employment and you're providing care, or you're studying and you're providing care. Do you have enough time to do both of them? Again, I often hear from carers that they're having to give up work or reduce their hours because of the toll that caring is having on their working life. So it's important to have the right support to be able to continue in your employment and also provide care as well. Making use of necessary facilities and services in the community. So this is where, do you have time to actually access services for yourself in the community, which could be like the dentist or the GP or, you know, physio, whatever it is that you have that's necessary for yourself. Do you have time to do that, or are you having to cancel appointments because of your caring role, or, you know, are you having to cancel it for any other reason? Then those sort of things should also be looked into. And the last one is engaging in recreational facilities, and this basically means the sort of hobbies that you have. Are you able to engage in that? You know, do you have time to go to the gym or to go for that walk? You know, those sort of things that really support your well-being. Are you having time to do those things? So the carers assessment will go through each and every one of those. It might be that not all of them apply to you, but you know, this will help you prepare for it, because I'm sure it might be a bit overwhelming when the assessor goes through all of these things in the assessment. So the questions that you'll be asked are going to be based around this, and this is where your respite will also come into it as well. So respite care is basically taking a break. It's really important for your well-being and your quality of life to take regular breaks. And it also means that the person that you provide care for gets a different experience, has different environment, and gets to meet different people as well as yourself. So just have a think about, when was the actual last time that you did something for yourself? When was the last time you took a break? And when you're thinking about taking a break, just have a think about the following things. What is it that you enjoy? Where would you like to go? You know, what would you like to do? And what would really contribute towards your well-being and happiness? And the main reason why respite care is so important for carers is because carers work very long hours. Some carers work 24 hours. So you really do deserve to look after yourself as well, because you all do a great job, and it's really important for yourself to take a step back and just do something for yourself. So there are lots of options for taking respite care, and there's different types of breaks available. So it depends really on what works for you and what you feel comfortable with. So there's residential or nursing care, and this is basically where the person that you provide care for will go for a short stay into a residential or nursing home. And you know, a short stay could be anything between 2 weeks to a month, or it could be on weekends, 2 weekends a month. Whatever works for you, that's what that option is for. And you can have a say in what residential care home they go into. You can ask all the necessary questions when you go to a visit. You know, if you're able to, speak with other service users there to see how they like it, and you know, explore it before you make that decision. The other option is a day sitting service. So this is where someone will come into your home and allow you to have a break, to have time for yourself. So they'll look after the person that you provide care for whilst you go and do what you need to do. There's also a night sitting service, and this is where someone will again come into your home to let you have that night's sleep. And so that's another option. There's also daycare. This is where the person you provide care for will go to a day centre, and they'll take part in different activities, and so they're away from the home. I mean, there's different types of day centres that might be appropriate for different people. So the social worker can explore those with you. The other one is holidays. So that's support to take a holiday on your own or with the person that you provide care for. So that's going abroad. I appreciate with the current situation that's not possible at the moment, but if you're thinking to go away somewhere in England, then that's another option. So there's direct payments, and what direct payments are they're cash payments that are provided by the local authority for the person who needs care so that they can arrange their own respite. And the whole purpose of direct payments is that it allows for more control, choice and independence. The other part of direct payments is that it does effectively mean that the person is an employer. So they'll have the employer duties with them, but that will be fully explained by the local authority, and you can get lots of support and help with those admin duties like the insurance and tax things, either by social services, or they can commission a company to help with that. So when you're preparing for your break, when you're doing that important handover information to the person or the agency that's looking after your loved one, there's a few things that you want to think about. So the first thing is the medicines. So what is it that they take, where are they stored, and what times do they need to be taken? Details of any allergies that the person might have. List of the contacts and their details, and that might be the social worker, the GP, any health professionals that's involved, family members, friends, and even if there's a solicitor involved, it's important to give all of that information over. Also details of any social care and NHS sort of provision. So if there's a care package in place that is arranged by social care or NHS, then provide them with that support plans, just so that they know what the agency are meant to be doing and what times they're meant to be attending to them. So when you're paying for respite care, it's social services, they might charge the person that you're looking after for any respite that's offered, and a financial assessment will be carried out, which will look at their income, savings, benefits, and disability related expenses. So disability related expenses are any expenses that the person has that is related to their condition, which is not met by the NHS or social services. So it's basically any money that the person pays for that is paid out of their own income. And it could be anything like vitamins, supplements, incontinence pads. And sometimes with those, in particular with those three things, it might be useful to get a supporting letter from the GP just to say that these are not available under the NHS. I do know that with some incontinence pads that they are available under the NHS, but it's usually one particular type which is not suitable for everybody. So that's why sometimes people have to pay privately for them. So again, social services may also charge carers for any services they provide, but a financial assessment will be carried out. It's quite difficult to say how much they would charge you, because they do the financial assessment and they will look at any income and savings you have as well as your benefits. If you have over £23,250, then you are considered a self-funder. So you would have to fund services yourself. So if you have over that amount, if you're married, then they take into account your partner's also finances as well, and they combine the two to see what they can do. Sometimes local authorities, they might just give you a budget to work with for the year, but they will do the assessment to assess that first. If you're living in Scotland, you cannot be charged for support. And if social services do charge for support for carers who live in England, Wales and Northern Ireland, then like I said, a financial assessment is carried out to determine affordability. So you will be asked for bank statements, you will be asked for receipts, sometimes for expenses. I appreciate that with expenses, not everybody keeps receipts. And what you can say to them is that if they are really hell-bent on wanting to see your expenses, then just say to them that it's available for inspection if they really want to see it. But you do have to give an explanation as to why you have these expenses where you're claiming disability related ones, especially. When you have your carers assessment, it's really important to mention if you need financial support in the services that you have. So just be honest with them and say to them that you're on limited means, or you have a lot of outgoings, you might have a debt, or just be honest with them about what your circumstances are, just so that they know, and then that can form part of the outcome of your assessment. So there are local carer groups who may be able to provide you with advice and information on particular grants that might be available. And to search for local carer groups, you can use our online directory. And I've just put the link here for you so you can access that. All you need to really do is just type in your postcode or your town, and it will come up with all your local carer groups in your area. So if you're arranging for respite care privately, you might not want to go through social services. You're basically taking on the responsibility of being an employer. So it's really important to think about the following things. Make sure you obtain references. 2 is enough. If the employee is unwell, then you need to pay statutory sick pay, as well as other duties such as maternity, paternity, and adoption. Ensure that their tax and national insurance is paid. They might be able to do a self-assessment if they're self-employed, and check that they have the right to work in the UK, and make sure that any necessary insurance is in place. Also, you need to ensure that health and safety requirements are in place, and be familiar with disciplinary and grievance procedures, and understand and be familiar with any redundancy aspects as well. If you are arranging care privately and you have to take into account all of these things, I can appreciate it must be quite overwhelming because of all those things that you need to do. You might be able to ask your local authority if there's a particular organisation that can help you with these things. And you may have to pay a small fee for that, but it might help just to get everything, especially if you're doing it for the first time, is just get that help and support in place. So if you're using private carers and you use a care agency, it's really important that you first research the agency by looking on Care Quality Commission website. And when you're having that first meeting with agency carers, you can ask them, what training have the carers had? Do they have funding to provide additional training if required? Sometimes carers might need particular moving and handling training. So you can ask that question. What levels are the carers trained at? Some carers have different levels of training and expertise, so you can ask that question. When was their last CQC inspection? Before you ask that question, you can look on their website as well, just to make sure that they're being honest. Can the agency support the service user if additional hours and support are required? What are the response time to concerns, and what are their safeguarding procedures? Now, the last 2 are very important because you may come across a situation and you need to get hold of management at the agency quickly. So you need to be aware of who you need to contact and how quickly will they get back to you. That's very important with safeguarding as well. So you need to know what are their procedures and what are they going to do. These questions can also be asked when you're not using care privately and you're just going through an agency with social services. You can ask these questions as well. So there's some useful organisations that you might be interested in. So there's the 3H Fund, and they help to provide subsidised groups in and around the UK for disabled people. And you might be able to also apply for a grant towards the cost of a holiday. So you can look at their details on their website. Kids are a great organisation. I do some work with them, so I can tell you firsthand that it's a really good company. They provide respite services for parents. And so it's basically a playground for disabled children. They've got quite a few around London. And basically the child is allocated a play worker, and they stay with them for the entire day. And they've got loads of different things in their playgrounds, like sensory rooms, quiet rooms, soft play, those sort of things. There's the Calvert Trust, and they provide outdoor adventure activities in the countryside. There's also Family Fund, and they provide grants towards the cost of holidays and other services for people who are on low incomes and who are caring for a child with a severe disability. So you can find details about all of these on their websites. So if you are in dispute with the local authority about respite care, if you're eligible for legal aid, you could get legal help with this in getting that support in place for you. And carers assessments and respite care are within the scope of legal aid work. So that means it can be done. So if you're eligible for legal aid, it's always worth asking them, it's always worth asking to consider using a legal aid solicitor to assist you. Judicial review can also be considered. That's where there's an error in the law. So if basically a local authority says you cannot have a carer's assessment, then that's a possible JR situation there. It is a last resort remedy, and it's always taken forward on advice from the barrister. And so when you do instruct a solicitor, they will try and work with the local authority first. If they don't have any luck, then you can get a barrister on the case as well to move things forward. And the thing with judicial review is that it cannot be taken forward when there's a disagreement of fact, and that's where remedies like the complaints process and the ombudsman can be used. So if you are having problems in getting respite care and there's maybe a disagreement of what was said in your assessment, then you can use a complaints process with the local authority. And if you still are not getting anywhere, then you can go forward to the local government and social care ombudsman, and they can investigate it for you and make recommendations.
Lovely. Okay, how do I follow that? So what I'm going to talk about is a little bit to do with welfare benefits. So when you take a break from caring, sometimes your welfare benefits can be impacted. So not only your benefits, but also those of your person that you're providing care for as well. So I'm just going to run through some of the different types of benefits and some of the pitfalls and things that you just need to be really mindful of. Now, this pretty much accounts for if you're going to have a holiday. So if you're having a holiday either with or without the person that you care for. And so I'm going through the different types. So this is slightly different to if they were going into respite care. So this is really if you're taking a break away from that person, or in some circumstances if you're going to be going together and maybe leaving the country in the future, who knows. So the first one that I wanted just to think about is the most common benefit that as carers we get, and this is something called carer's allowance. So you can take a break from your caring duties, or you can take a break from the eligibility rules for carer's allowance for a number of different reasons. So you can have a break for up to 4 weeks in any 26 weeks, so that's 6 months. And continue to be paid your carer's allowance during these breaks. So this can be for any reason. So this could be if you're having a holiday away from the person that you provide care for, or maybe if you're working, there's an extra piece of work that's going to come in, that's going to take you over the earning limits. There isn't a particular kind of break that you cannot take. It can be for any reason. Now, in order to request this caring break, you need to have been providing the 35 hours of care required for carers allowance for at least 22 of the previous 26 weeks. So out of the last 6 months, you must have been providing 22 weeks care. So the more mathematically minded of us can work out straight away in a flash that you can actually have 8 weeks break a year from your caring duties and still be paid carers allowance. The rules are slightly different if the person you've been caring for has been in hospital. But the key thing here, and this is absolutely key, is that you have to request this caring break well in advance from the carers allowance unit. They have to make a note of it on their records. You have to have really key communication about when you're going to take this break. The best way to do this is to telephone them just on their normal number. And I know it's really difficult to get through. Perseverance is absolutely the key. And noting that they've got a reduced call answering time at the moment. So it's only between 10 and 2, Monday to Friday. Now, one final thing is, if this wasn't complicated enough, a caring week for carers allowance starts on a Sunday. So it starts on a Sunday and it ends on a Saturday. So that sometimes means there might be a little bit of overlap between 2 normal weeks. So you just need to be really mindful about how your 35 hours of caring is going to be provided. Maybe if you're going away Saturday to Saturday, are you going to be able to get those 35 hours, those hours in? Okay, so that was if you were going to stay in the UK. Now, if you're going to go abroad, so if you go abroad on holiday, so this is anywhere outside of the UK, you can remain entitled to carers allowance as long as your absence is temporary. So that means you're not going abroad to live, and it's not expected to exceed for more than 4 weeks. So if you're going abroad with the person you care for, you have to satisfy, If you're not going abroad with the person you care for, you have to satisfy, you must have been providing 35 hours a week of care for the previous 22 out of 26 weeks. So that's your caring break for any reason. This is your opportunity to have some time in the Costa del Sol, for example. If your main purpose for going abroad, so you're going abroad, but you're going with the person you provide care for, as long as they remain entitled to their disability benefit, which I'm going to talk about, then the 4-week limit does not apply. So as long as you've gone abroad with the person you're providing care for, then this 4-week limit, it doesn't apply, because as long as the person you're caring for continues to get their benefit, as long as you're with them and still caring for them, then you can continue to get yours. Okay, so it starts to get a little bit complicated. So let's think about disability benefits. So disability benefits, these are attendance allowance, personal independence payment, and disability living allowance for both adults and children. Now, if you're going on holiday in the UK, as a disabled person yourself, your benefit is not going to be affected by you going on holiday in the UK. So therefore, if you take your carer with you, then their benefit isn't going to be affected. If you don't take your carer with you, then your carer will either need to take a caring break. So that's the 22 weeks of the previous 26 weeks they must have been claiming carers allowance for, or their carers allowance will stop. Now, if you're going abroad and you receive one of these disability benefits, then you can go abroad, but temporarily up to 13 weeks. So again, if your carer goes with you, then their carers allowance will continue as long as your disability benefit continues. If you're going abroad for medical treatment, this might be extended up to 6 months. But again, you need to get advance agreement from the Department of Work and Pensions. So it's really tricky if you're going on holiday. It depends very much so on if you're going with the person that you're caring with, and if their benefits are going to be staying in place depending on the duration of the holiday and where the holiday is being taken. Now, it also gets a little bit more tricky, I'm afraid to say, because I know that alongside disability benefits and carers allowance, a lot of households are topped up or have other types of benefit. Now, each welfare benefit, as we already know, have their own unique set of rules, criteria, and eligibilities. Now, this doesn't change when it comes to having time away. So whether you're going on holiday in the UK or whether you're going abroad. So universal credit is quite a new benefit into the welfare benefit system. Some of you may not have come across it yet, but for those of you who have, it's a means tested benefit that tops up your income. And as part of a universal credit claim, you are required to have something called a claimant commitment. So your claimant commitment requires you, in some circumstances, to do some form of work-related activity. If this is the case, then you must continue to do this while you're on holiday. Even if you are in the UK or if you are out the UK, if you are in a claimant commitment group that requires you to carry out any type of claimant work-related activity, or maybe training courses, or keeping in touch with them, have work-focused interviews, then you still have to be able to do that while you're away. There is no such thing as a timeout or a breakaway when you receive universal credit. The good news is that if you're a carer, you have no claimant commitment requirements attached to any universal credit claim. And the same as if you have a long-term health condition or disability that has assessed you as having limited capability for work and work-related activity, I know I couldn't make it up, then you too have no claimant commitment, but you still have to let the DWP know that you are going on holiday. So the holiday can be up to 1 month in duration, but if you do have a claimant commitment attached to your claim, you have to provide evidence of things like jobs you've applied for, training courses you've attended, or discussions you've had with your work coach. So it's a really tricky one if you're on universal credit. Some of us will not be on universal credit, okay? We may be on pension credit. So pension credit, as some of us may be aware, it's a means tested benefit that helps top up our income when we're of state retirement pension age. Now, the good news is pension credit is not affected if you take any kind of break or holiday within the UK. Okay, so we don't need to worry about that. We would only need to worry about whether we were going with the person we cared for or the duration of the holiday, if it was more than 13 weeks. Now, with pension credit, if you're going abroad temporarily, okay, so temporarily is that it's expected that you are going to return within 4 weeks, then your pension credit is not going to be affected. If you're going abroad for medical treatment, you may be able to receive your pension credit for up to 26 weeks. But again, you have to let the pension service know in advance, and they'll ask details of why you're going for your medical treatment, what kind of medical treatment are you expecting to receive. Now, if you were going to move abroad permanently, then you wouldn't be able to receive pension credit. It's one of the benefits that's not exportable if you were to go and live outside of the UK. And last but not least, you might breathe a sigh of relief here, that if you do get your state retirement pension, it is not affected by holiday periods or any length or destination. So your state pension would not be affected in any way. So that's something that's a bit of good news. Now, I know a lot of people who we provide care for receive a benefit called Employment and Support Allowance. So ESA. So with ESA, this is a benefit that looks at your ability to be able to carry out work-related activity. So if you're temporarily in another country, so if you go outside of the UK, you can continue to receive your contribution-based or income-related ESA for the first 4 weeks of your absence, as long as you're unlikely to be away for more than 52 weeks. Okay. If you're going abroad temporarily for medical treatment, or to accompany a dependent child for their treatment, it could be extended up to 26 weeks, as long as you're unlikely to be away for more than 52 weeks. The treatment you receive in this case must be directly related to the health condition, which began before leaving Great Britain. And again, you have to seek permission from the Department of Work and Pensions before you go. If the treatment is for you, the condition must be directly related to the treatment you're going to be receiving, and the reasons why you have been found to have limited capability for work. If you're staying in the UK, Then your ESA, as long as you're not due for renewal or you're not due for a medical to check your eligibility, then that will not be affected by any type of holiday or break, as long as you're still contactable by the DWP. I'm sure people are going to start to think about some questions, but I will take them at the end, I promise. Now, whenever we take a break away, whether it's in the UK or whether we're going to go abroad, or even if we're going to stay with family members, for example, if you receive housing benefit, which helps pay towards your rent, or council tax support, which helps pay towards your council tax, you can continue to claim both of these benefits while you're away from home for a period of up to 13 weeks. There are a number of different circumstances that this does apply for, but the one we're looking here is if you're taking a holiday or if you're taking a break away from the family home. So as long as you are on holiday, you're away from the family home, and your circumstances while you are away do not change. So for example, you weren't working before you went, the entire 13 weeks that you are away, you don't get a part-time job where you're suddenly earning £200 a week, then your housing benefit and council tax benefit will continue to be paid. There are other ways that your housing benefit and council tax can continue to be paid if you're away from the family home, so such as prolonged hospital stays, unexpectedly having to live somewhere else. There are a lot of different ways that your rent and council tax can still be paid if you need to be away from the family home, but as each type of situation is different, I would always advise that you get in touch with just some further personalised advice. Okay, there's a couple more benefits. Income support, I didn't make a slide for it, but I have just thought about this one. Income support, if you're claiming income support, it's linked to the carer's allowance claim. So as long as your carer's allowance claim stays active, so you've taken a break for one of the 22 out of the previous 26 weeks, and you've got the permission from the carer's allowance unit, then your income support will continue to be in payment. And as long as the disability benefit doesn't stop with the person that you're providing care for, then your carer's allowance won't stop. So as long as your carer's allowance doesn't stop, then your income support won't stop. So we really are starting to get a bit of a catalogue of how each benefit is dependent on each other. I know this is something, if you're in that situation, you're very aware of, but that doesn't change if you were thinking about taking a break. And child tax credit, that isn't affected by taking a break, and working tax credit wouldn't be affected as long as you overall met the requirements for those benefits while you were on your break. But overall, what I want to say is that this isn't a picture of doom and gloom. Okay, you are able to take breaks. The key thing with your welfare benefits is that you actually have to be really organised. Think about where you're going, how long you're going to be away for, and make sure you let the relevant departments know. So as a general rule of thumb, breaks of less than 4 weeks, as long as you include and let everyone know, are generally okay. Depending on the circumstances, up to 13 weeks potentially is still going to be okay, as long as you're going with the person that you provide care and support for. And just one final thing, as we know, there isn't one single telephone number to let each individual benefit department know in a combined way. So depending on the type of benefit, you would need to contact each individual department and let them know. We can never assume that they're going to talk to each other. When it's in our favour for them to talk to each other, then they don't. But when they want to know about overpayments, then they do seem to have the ability. But it is always our duty to inform them of any changes to our circumstances. And going on holiday is a change to our circumstances. Okay.
And this is just all our contact details and just all our tabs on social media. And so yeah, if you're on social media, do follow us and get in touch. If you need advice, you can contact us by phone or email.